Hey everyone, thanks for joining us today. My name is Katie Klaus. I am the VP of MSP Sales here at JumpCloud, and I am going to be walking us through, or hosting, I should say, our webinar this morning, Making Zero Trust Security a Reality. So a few housekeeping items here before we jump in. Should you guys have any questions at all, please use the questions box through GoToWebinar. We'll be answering those today throughout the broadcast, and then if you guys have questions that we didn't get to or any items that you'd like us to follow up on, you can send us an email at webinar@jumpcloud.com. Last item, there's also going to be a short survey at the end today. If you guys could all just take a minute and fill that out for us, we'd love your feedback and specifically to hear how we can make webinars like this better in the future. So with that, I would like to introduce you guys quickly to my wonderful guests today. So first off, we have Dennis Moore, the owner and a cybersecurity professional from Coefficient Technologies. He is a fantastic JumpCloud partner and a Proofpoint partner as well, which will matter when you hear about the rest of our guests here today. So with that, next we have Jason Eberhardt. He's the Global VP of Cloud and MSP at Proofpoint. And then we have Zach Bauer, who's known to many a JumpCloud MSP. He is a former VP of IT. He himself has worked for an MSP, and he is now a JumpCloud engineer. Really happy to have everyone here today, so thank you guys for joining me. When I think of Zero Trust, I can't help but go back to probably 10 or 15 years ago. It's very similar to the cloud in that everyone was talking about it, but not everyone knew entirely what it meant, if we can actually believe that, but that's where we were. And it also tended to mean different things to different people. So I thought it would be a really great way to get us started today if each of you could talk a little bit about what Zero Trust means to you, and specifically how it impacts your day-to-day. So Jason is our guest from Proofpoint. You want to kick us off here?
I would love to. Thank you so much. And thank you for everybody for taking the time to listen to us with our crazy ideas and thought processes. But we would love to help out. And anything at the end of this, if you have any questions that we don't get answered today, reach out to us. Just make sure you know that, right? So Zero Trust. So we were talking about this before, Zach and I I have an engineering background before. And what I used to think about Zero Trust was IPX, SPX with NetWare. Yes, I'm older. Yes, I used to implement NetWare, right? So that's what I always thought was IP to IPX, SPX. For those engineers out there that know what I'm talking about, that was what I thought Zero Trust was. Now, as I've gotten older, I've been in the security industry for 20 plus years, everything is Zero Trust. And I would love to hear what my panels say about this, but here's what I would say. Everything in your life is Zero Trust. Do you leave your front door open? If you do, then that's not Zero Trust. But if you lock it, if you have a security system, if you have a camera, if you make sure that you know who's in your house and who's not, that's Zero Trust. Your passwords to get on your bank accounts, to do your stocks, to do everything, that's Zero Trust. You need to have some kind of security in place to make sure to keep out the bad guys. And that's what Zero Trust is to me. But I think, let me pass it over to Dennis. I want to hear what you have to say, Dennis, and then we can kind of open this up because Zach's a talker. So let's start with Dennis.
Yeah, Zero Trust is, I agree with you 100%, Jason. It's been around for a long time and everything is Zero Trust. It really means to trust nothing and verify everything. And especially in today's world where you don't know where people are working from. They could be working from home, could be working from a coffee shop, they could be working from one of their competitors, with the competition. You just don't know where people are accessing information or their applications and what devices they're using. So zero trust is a principle that kind of brings everything together into a framework where you can start applying these principles into your real world. Case in point, conditional access. You don't want, like a device, it may not be encrypted. You may not want that device to connect to your application out in cloud, such as Salesforce, Workday, or whatever application, SaaS-based application of your choice. So that's what zero trust really means to me, is just being able to apply these principles to your day-to-day world so that you can protect your users, your devices, and your data and applications.
I think you guys did a great job kicking that off.
Thank you.
I think back to when things were simple, 2007, 2006, and your email server was on-prem and your file server, and you controlled ingress to those systems through a simple password, and you had a firewall, and everything was pretty inside and easy. Well, things definitely aren't that anymore. Things have moved on. We have cloud, and 2020 brought us something a little special in how to think about security and accessing these resources that hold the keys to the kingdom. And so, single sign-on's been around for a while, but zero trust, the next level of securing ingress, knowing the device, knowing the person, and having controlled secure ingress into those systems. That's what it's all about now. This is taking it across the line. This is touchdown time. We have some tools in place, and now it's getting us over that next hump so we can actually achieve security in this new wild world of no borders.
I love it, Zach. And what I'll add to that is, here at Proofpoint, we focus on people-centric security. I know a lot of people look at us as like an email security, and we are. That's just one of many things that we do. But we focus on where the threats happen. It's the people. 97%, I think it was the Verizon DIBR or whatever that format that they come out with. They literally say 97% attacks happen with people and email. 3% is, with technology and those kind of things that we still care about. But I still think it's super important to have the network security, right? The firewalls, the edge security, all those things for the zero trust. But then that next step and that next level is where the attacks happen. The attacks happen to the people. Because if you go after the people, you get to what they have access to and what those people have access to. So we try to stop it right at the people. What do you think about that, Dennis?
Yeah, absolutely. That is the weakest link in most organizations. And there's a reason why we have cybersecurity awareness training so that, we can educate folks not to fall for the obvious attacks. Of course, you're going to have your technology around doing certain things, but there's some attacks that are really geared towards people weaknesses. When you have the word free in something, okay, be suspicious of that. Free download be something really suspicious, those type of things, or something that looks like your bank account, those type of things. The bad guys are engineering their attacks towards people. And I agree with that 1000%. And there are a couple of things that you can do, like I mentioned, cybersecurity awareness training, and Proofpoint has some pieces around there with the technology, which really protects the people. So that is number one. And another way with people is get them to safeguard their passwords. Don't use the same password over and over again, because the bad guys, they compromise one time. They know that you use the same thing over and over again, and you wonder why your bank account has been compromised. Even with MFA, there's things around that, but they have your password. Good luck to you getting that money back. What
Hey,
do you think,
Dennis, I
Zach?
got a question for you. Remember
Okay.
Y2K? Do you guys remember Y2K? Are we
Yeah,
old
yeah.
enough to remember that?
Yep.
So when I did that, I actually was an engineer back then. So yeah, I know it's hard to look at me as an engineer, but I was way a long time ago, right? Don't make fun of me, Zach. So at Y2K, we did this project, and we had to go and touch 1,000 machines manually, because we're talking back in Y2K days, right? 90, I think it was 95%. Every keyboard we flipped over had the password underneath the keyboard. Every single one. Yeah, remember those days, right?
Yeah.
So yes, it's important. But back to the security awareness thing, Dennis, I love that you brought that up. I was going to bring that up later. Make the people in your organization part of the solution, not part of the problem. And by doing security awareness training, we make them part of the solution. We want them to be engaged. We want them to understand security, because especially to Zach's point, we all work from everywhere now. Security is everyone's problem. Back in the day, you went into an environment and you had a department of IT, which you still do. You have a security department, all those things still happen. But when you start taking that stuff outside of the environment, like Zach's point, everything was locked down, Exchange servers inside, firewalls inside. When you start getting outside, then you have to make the changes to be part of the solution. Zach, what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, you know what? I mean, for the last 3 minutes while you blocked me out of the conversation. No, I'm just teasing. No, really.
Trying.
This conversation is perfect because if we just look at 2020, I was working in an MSP as head of cybersecurity, VP of cybersecurity, and it was horrifying. First of all, we had clients that didn't have MFA. Then we were sending home company workstations, desktop computers, to their homes, to an unknown environment where who knows what's going on that network. So you got trust, 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 the exact opposite of zero trust. And so what should your first line of defense be? It's got to be security awareness and training, but we needed tools in place prior to that date. And some companies adapted better because they had good framework in place. And I saw some that really, it was absolutely horrifying to think that they were executing these things that were critical to day-to-day business functions that access PII and PCI. You know, and when we talk about hardening security, there are things we can do that is, you know, not going to totally rock the boat in terms of user interaction with it, but are reasonable steps to take forward and approachable from a cost standpoint. And that's where we're at now. 2020 was the wake-up call, and it's, you know, it's table stakes now to be doing things like MFA and zero trust and conditional access and SAML and cybersecurity awareness training at the top.
What you guys are both touching on, and what's really important is that you have this healthy balance here, right? We got to get our users invested. We have to make sure that they have the training, that they understand why this isn't only important, this is critical, but then you have to make sure that the tools that you're using on the back end are going to support the policies that need to be put in place, or whatever it is, to make sure that they're trained, they're on board with what we're doing, but they're also forced to do that at the end of the day, right? That's what I found to be hugely important, and what we really talk to our partners about.
Yeah. One other thing that we're kind of mentioning in a roundabout way is that security needs to take into account the user experience. That, you know, whatever controls you put in place, it shouldn't adversely affect the users from doing their day-to-day jobs. If we're doing that, then users find a way to work around those systems and those things in place. I remember back in the day, you know, you put in something and first thing you know, people were, you know, using USBs, taking stuff home to do their work at home. You know,
You're restricting my ability to work, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that.
Those handy Post-it notes underneath the keyboard. Look, I'm a proponent of maybe relaxing some of the password security requirements if you can get 100% adoption of MFA. You know, I'd rather be on that side of the house than, hey, you got to have, you know, a 36 character alphanumeric special character password. I think everybody likes that.
We like to say here at Proofpoint that there's 3 different types of people, right? There's malicious, there's compromised, and then there's negligent, right? Any of those can be an issue if you're not doing the right security awareness training, right? So I know we keep talking about that, but it's really important because most things happen because they haven't been trained correctly. They don't know the right things, right? They don't look for the email address to make sure that, oh, it actually isn't the person that I thought it was. I have this story that, you know, that I know a CEO, and he was walking, I don't want to say the name, but he walked by his accounts payable person, and they're like, oh, I got the check done. It's about to go out right now. And he stopped. He goes, what check? And she goes, oh, I'm about to do $100,000 check that you sent me the email. He goes, can I see that email? And it wasn't him. And she was literally about to send it, right? And if he didn't walk by, it would have been gone. So those things happen every day, right? So it comes from email, it comes from network security. Zero trust comes in, like I said when I first started with the discussion, was it's all parts of our lives. Like our keys to our car is zero trust, right? Do we let people just get in our cars that don't have keys to our cars? No. So what we do in our lives needs to compromise or kind of look at what we do in security. Security is our lives, and it's everyone's problem. And I'm going to say that probably 20 more times.
Yeah, you know what? this might have been 2014 where it really kicked off in the Bay Area. I was VP of IT for Scale Venture Partners, and one of the other VC firms was phished, and it was one of those scenarios where the CEO sent an email to the finance team and said, "Wire 500 grand. This is urgent," and the transaction actually went through. And that highlights a number of different things. One is user awareness, but also the ability for something like Proofpoint to look at these emails and make good decisions about whether that hits the inbox or not. So there's proactive training, and then there's proactive tool sets as well. And we need overlapping things in place, and sometimes multiples.
Yeah, and it goes without saying, right? Make sure you have encryption. Maybe look at a DLP tool that we also do that as well, information protection, what we call it. Because if you don't know what happened, how do you solve that problem, right? We have security, the security awareness training we talked about. There's so many things. We have social media protection, all these things that we're trying to find a way. And that's what I love about Proofpoint. And that's why I'm excited to be here, because we focus on the person problem, not the network problem, which, again, I want to be very clear. It's a combination that we all need to do together for security, not just one thing, but we want to go to the heart of the problem where we can make the biggest difference, and that's with the people.
Dennis, how are you approaching this from, an organization providing security services? How are you layering this on to meet the current and future needs of your clients?
Yeah, that's a great question. We monitor the industry, and we select vendors that that are not going to go away tomorrow or be sold tomorrow. The last thing you want is, partner up with a company, and then next thing you know, they're acquired, and then that solution dries up. So that's why we partner up with Proofpoint and JumpCloud. We've been following JumpCloud since about 3 or 4 years ago, and JumpCloud has followed the digital transformation where they realize that the cloud isn't going anywhere. Everything needs to talk to the cloud, whether or not it's in a hybrid format or whether or not it's 100% cloud focused. Because there are businesses that are cloud only, and then there are businesses that are really dealing with the hybrid. So we're taking those companies that are core providers that we can leverage with our customers, as Jason said, with the people first, with Proofpoint, with email, social media protection, all of those type of things that they do to protect them. And then we use JumpCloud for the identity and access management that is so critical for businesses that have entities all over the place. One of the big thing is being able to onboard and offboard users in a cloud environment. So, for example, let's say a company has, Salesforce, Workday in the cloud. Then they have a share on-premise for certain users. Then they have a division across the U.S. or even worldwide. How do you onboard someone? Do you just ship out a laptop and they configure it themselves? How do you provision them with their email account and automatically provision them with Proofpoint protection, with JumpCloud? How do you encrypt all of those type of those devices in a central manner? And adversely, if somebody gets fired, how do you offboard them?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's even more critical because if you don't have centralized control over one piece, they can log into a cloud resource even though you offboarded them through your Microsoft Office 365.
Yeah.
They still can log in.
That's a great point. Having your core framework and finding those pillars, JumpCloud, Proofpoint, for example. But then approaching things from a programmatic or a systematic way where you're less reliant on an Excel check sheet and more reliant on things that happen in an automatic
We've all been
way.
there.
Yeah.
Eliminating that potential for user error.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dennis, my answer. Oh, sorry. Kate.
Oh, the onboarding, offboarding Excel spreadsheet is right there on par with the sticky note password. I'm just
Yep.
gonna throw
I
that out.
agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Dennis, I was
Oh,
just
go
going to
ahead.
say, yeah, it's all right. Dennis, I was going to say, how do you do that?
Mhm.
Back when I used to be an engineer, manually, every
Yeah.
single one, step by step. So yes, you gave me like anxiety thinking about that back in the day.
And then if your IT admin is the primary person and they are on vacation or they're sick, how does somebody step in and do that? It's like, okay, give them a spreadsheet. And they're like, I don't have a login to that.
If we go back in the day until they get back, that's the answer I used to give.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I can remember being a one-man band in IT
Same.
and
Yeah.
wanting to go off and go ride dirt bikes and be in an area where there was no cell phone signal, but having anxiety because the company may not be able to reach me if something goes
Right.
wrong. And
Hmm.
yeah, getting away from that, but having a core foundation for security that you build on
Right.
that addresses these things in a programmatic way is the way things I think should be done and is the future for sure.
Hmm.
Yeah, you look at the people, right? The security awareness training, getting all the network security, all the stuff we talked about before, but kind of making your army, right? Where you can
Hmm.
actually go on vacation and you come in with the bigger problems, let them handle the smaller problems, right? Shouldn't
Yeah.
click on that email, shouldn't pick up that USB stick in the parking lot that still
Right.
people fall for, right? It's
Yeah.
just those kind of things over and over again.
Yeah, the USB drives at conferences, taking those
Mhm.
USB drives. I'm not taking a Proofpoint USB stick. I'm sorry.
Are you sure? I used to hand those out, but not anymore at conferences.
Yeah.
I used to just put a picture on there, see if they'd actually click on it with me smiling with my thumbs up, just to see who would actually open it.
Yeah,
Just kidding.
I once spitballed with my systems engineer. I said, a really clever way for a hacker would be to actually just put together a bunch of USB thumb drives, put it in SanDisk packaging, and then take them into Office Depot and put them on the rack.
Mhm.
That
No,
way
no
it's
brainstorming
trusted.
here, Zach. This,
Yeah.
You're
Well,
writing the blueprint.
when you're in cybersecurity, you have to think like a hacker in order to
You
Mhm.
figure
do.
out how you would
You have
prevent
to.
things to happen. So
Yep.
I've
We're
fair,
walked
always a couple steps
fair
ahead, right? We're always trying to catch up.
Mhm.
and just nobody do that. That's a really bad idea.
Yeah.
disclaimer. Yeah, note from
Disclaimer, exactly.
coming your way. Um, so switching gears a bit, we've I think all here mentioned obviously COVID, the shift to remote work, working from anywhere. So a question from one of our participants today. So now with such a distributed workforce, what are some of the suggestions or recommendations for securing users on networks that IT has no control over?
I can start. Yeah. So
Mhm.
what we talk about from work from home is, so I've worked from home close to 15 plus years. So it's just normal for me. But a lot of people got thrusted into working from home. And what happens is people delineate between their work environment and their home environment. And what that means is they're going to be a little more lax at home, right? They're going to be getting on their bank accounts, their Facebooks, their my kids will laugh if they see that if I don't say TikTok and Snapchat and those things, right? That I don't use, they use, right? But those are the things that happen when you're at home. You don't think about it. You're like, oh, I can just go and look at this and go do that. And, oh, click on that email and open up my personal email that you would never do at home. And here's the problem. Some companies don't have VPNs set up. So you could be a VPN, you can keep that separated, but here's the disconnect. When you shut off the VPN, you're doing stuff on your machine. As soon as you connect that VPN, think about it like taking your laptop or your machine, walking into your work environment and setting it in. That's what's happening when you're VPNing. And that's why I keep saying, and I'm going to say it again, it's security is everyone's problem. So what you need is security awareness training, all that kind of stuff. I won't go into that whole thing again, but what needs to happen is when you're at home and you're working and you work on a machine that connects to your work environment, consider yourself at that environment. If you did that, the whole security posture for the whole world would get better because you'd be sitting here, your Wi-Fi would be a password, you have some kind of edge router, something that you probably don't even know about, but it's there, right? And then just think about what you're doing. Maybe have a personal computer that doesn't connect to your work VPN, right? Maybe make sure all the antiviruses are up to date. Make sure all your passwords are up to date. Make sure that you're not keeping all the passwords synced on your laptop so that if somebody does compromise it, they see everything you can do, right? So I could go on, but let me have the panelists jump in as well.
Yeah,
Dennis. So
Dennis, you go first. I've been flapping my gums the whole time. You go, Dennis.
Okay. Yeah, working from home, just, if possible, don't share that same PC that your kids are doing their homework with or going out doing those things with your work PC. Ideally, kids may try to get on to have you be able to put your computer to sleep after 5 minutes or 15 minutes when it's home. So that way kids can't get onto it without getting your credentials. That's number one thing. The other thing is, with the VPN, be cautious of that. Many organizations are moving away from the VPN because
that's true.
the user experience is lacking. Because when in 2020, when everyone started to work from home, most organization was sized for maybe 25% people working from home. And then when you go to 75 to 90%, the user experience went down. So that's where the single sign-on is important, going directly out to corporate resources or business resources, making sure everything's encrypted in transit. That's another zero trust principle.
Exactly.
And what else? I could go on and on with different things. It just be mindful that for the work environment and the home environment are separate, and that's the main thing, the main principle.
Yeah.
If I was an attacker, sorry, Zach, I just want to add, if I was an attacker, I'd be attacking people's homes right now because I know they're at home and I know they're connecting to systems that I want access to what they're connecting to. So who do you think they're attacking now? Yeah.
Wholeheartedly agree. And actually, the home is probably the worst place now because it's trusted, right? You trust your home, you must be secure. So, but let's talk about that. What are your children doing? Are they playing Minecraft? Did they download a public repo of Minecraft that is basically rooted and you got a hacker sitting on your network, the same network in which you're now connecting, and you're going to put your work laptop on a VPN and funnel traffic? That's a problem. So
sure.
Well, when I was head of cybersecurity for an MSP, I won't say the name. It was effectively an MSP in-house for a private equity firm, and I started to send home Cisco Meraki firewalls with with the cellular backup, and I would set up the firewall rules so that it would route the traffic only for the corporate owned device through that tunnel for finance. And now I actually have a different sort of thought. Not that I think that's a great idea for companies to send home some extra protection for the home networks and segregate the internet and the local area network, but I also now think of VPN as another opportunity to authenticate with MFA, even if I'm not going to route traffic. It's just an authentication opportunity for differential forms of MFA. But yeah, the local area network is a real problem at homes. There's a lot going on there. IoT constantly exposed, and how do you protect yourself as an organization? Well, it's simple. Move away from on-premise stuff, move to the cloud, adopt SaaS, address SAML and zero trust. That's your path.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, if you go back where all of us started our careers, right, we kind of talked about it a little bit. I even implemented Meraki's before Cisco bought them. So that's how far I go back, right? So but think about it. IT departments and IT people, all of us are IT people, right? We loved it because everything was there. And little by little, to Zach's point, people started, like salespeople started traveling, executives, you can't put security on my stuff. I need to be able to access my stuff. So leave me alone, but secure everyone else. And back then, I don't know if this happened to you guys, but back then you're like, okay, yeah, of course, you're the boss. But now, if I was a CISO or a director of IT, or if I was in those positions, I'd be like, no, sorry, you have the exact same restrictions as everyone else, or I need to go somewhere else, because there's going to be something that happens that they're going to use it without doing zero trust and just letting you guys do whatever you want with inside and outside access. People are going to access it, right? So I always use this analogy of a house. Think of your house, because everybody lives in a house, apartment, doesn't matter what it is, right? How many access points does it take to get in? One. A door, a window, a garage, breaking down the wall, doesn't matter, right? One. Now associate that with an IP address. That's all it needs. An attacker needs one little sliver of access to get you, to get in, to see what you're doing, to be able to compromise you, to see what data you have, all that kind of stuff. So at the end of the day, you have to be zero trust security to lock everything down and know who's in there. And then if people do get past that zero trust, then you have things like DLP and different types of things that can tell you what's going on. But you have to start with zero trust, right, Zach? Wouldn't you agree? You have to start with zero trust?
I believe that that's absolutely the case. And that's the approach I took when I was VP of engineering at the Last Mile. And we were spinning up coding camps inside state prisons, starting off at San Quentin. And, you know, back to the framework. I needed framework in place in order to secure that environment, to start to build out something that looked like zero trust. I needed to comply with CDCR rules. So, you know, framework. Once I found JumpCloud in 2014, it became that core part in which I could build on, like you mentioned, Dennis, with your pillars. And zero touch has to be part of the plan. Even if you're not just doing it proactively, compliance is going to come along, insurance is going to come along, and they're going to make you do it. So you may as well start moving there now.
Yeah, the one thing we like to do is we don't want our customers be the low-hanging fruit.
Yeah.
What I mean by that is that the easy pickings, you know, that's what the bad guys do, the malicious actors. They're looking for the low-hanging fruit, the easy things to do. So we try to take away things like people don't distribute your laptops out with root access for your common users. They don't need root access. You know, you can install all the software and give them limited access.
But Dennis, I'm the president. Don't I get root access?
That's really nice.
Yeah, you don't want to give them the keys to the kingdom. Those type of things to give them the ability to do their job, be able to install things that they need to install. But root, you know, it means root. That means you can do anything on that computer.
Dennis, you're right on this.
Yeah. Yeah. So, you know, that's what the bad guys are trying to do. They do escalation of privileges. And then once they get that, they get the foothold in there, and then they start sending data out. Can they send it out? Yeah. And then they can start sending it out to their resources. And then before you know it, they got all your data, or they encrypted everything and have a copy stored somewhere else. Even if you pay the ransom, they may come back and re-ransom you right after you pay it. So,
Dennis, I think you touched on something really important that we haven't really talked about, or maybe a little bit, is the access that people have, right? Making sure you understand who they have access to, what they have access to, and how big of a deal that is if they were compromised. And I know us three have all been in IT, right? I don't know, Katie, have you been in IT or just in sales? I want to, when it's SE. Are you an SE?
No, I am technology all the way, but I have a sales background.
Okay, so I started, but I'm in sales. So I used to be smart, but that was a long time ago, right? So nobody get mad at me. But every job I've been at, IT director, whatever it was, right? Different from my whole career. Every time I went into a place, people had access to data that they didn't need access to. I mean, would you guys agree on that? Like literally every single time. And when you get in there, especially when it's the presidents or anything, right? CEO, CIO, CISO, they all have access to data. And some of the C's make sense, right? But when you start looking into it, they have access to the financial data to be able to write checks, but they're a VP of this company over here that should never do that. But when they get hired in, they just get put in that privileged group that with the Active Directory, and they just have it. So another thing, you know, just for anybody that works in an IT environment, look at that, because you can save yourself so much trouble down the road. If somebody gets compromised that has access to data that the bad actors wanted access to, but you stop that and you sever that access, it's going to save you a lot of headache. Trust
Yep.
me, I've done it in my career and I've been on both sides of it.
Absolutely, 100%. You know, knowing who should have access to what, and then not over provisioning access. You know, and then back to, you brought it up, Dennis, the amount of rights you have on your local machine. You know, if you put a little bit of extra work up front as an IT org and cybersecurity org, and making sure that the systems are configured in a programmatic way, then you can get away from that local administrative elevation, right? And we need to be there, as well as, other tools, other really important tools that, put framework around what can execute on a machine. But that first line of defense is really that administrative access. And do we all need that? I even as a VP of IT, I did not have admin access. I had a separate account in order to go.
You're smarter than me, Zach. I gave myself access to everything, but yes, I learned, right? I learned.
Yeah, not many CEOs need to run PowerShell scripts.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Zach, I am the salesperson here. I am from JumpCloud, and so I would be foolish to miss the point that JumpCloud, and looking at the user lifecycle management and what you can do from a programmatic standpoint for both user onboarding and offboarding. Ideally, you're using JumpCloud or a similar tool, so it's not all that much work on the front end. You now, though, are absolutely sure that everybody's getting the access to only what they need, and you're filling those holes before they begin.
If I could go 15 years ago, I wish I would have met JumpCloud. Let me just be very clear. And Proofpoint and all these other tools, right? So it's amazing.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, it's a little work up front to think about how you want to affect that, what applications are appropriate for which groups, and using a powerful tool like JumpCloud, or if it's something else, using that to provision those things. But really not thinking about the user admin rights as part of that process, doing things in a new programmatic way.
And that's one of the main reasons why we partner with JumpCloud, is that the collapsing, or actually the integration of what you can do. What JumpCloud does is like 4 or 5 separate products combined into one, and that makes it easier to administer, to provide that user experience for your customer, for your end users or your customers. It's so much easier, and it seems to them as that, oh man, these guys have their act together. All I needed to do is provide my name, and they give me a laptop, and it's provision, and I'm automatically into Salesforce, and I'm into Office 365. Everything's encrypted, and I don't have to do anything. And be able to provide that information to your C-suite, saying, even though we have a sales team clear across the world, we got all this information. We know that they have access to, what they call least privilege in the security world, is that only people have access to what they need to do their job. So you have reasonable assuredness that these folks, your folks, are protected from themselves, really.
Yeah.
I worked at a government contractor early in my career, and there was a room in every building. There was about 5 different companies. I won't say the names, right? But there was rooms that were not rooms. And I was a very young guy as an IT director. I was 23 years old. And they said, Jason, you have access to everything in this whole building, all these buildings. You can't go into that room. And I was like, what do you mean? They're like, that is a secure system to the, I think it was the Pentagon or something like that, right? Something crazy. One day they couldn't print from it, but I couldn't look at it. So I had to sit from this side of it, look at the back of the computer, and tell them what to do from this side. And the reason I bring that story up, zero trust comes into play, right? They wanted to completely control who went into that room, who could see that data, and who could communicate with that other side of the agency to be able to have that conversation. So these zero trust measures have been in since we've been alive, right? And since there's been technology, it's just now starting to trickle down from the higher levels down to when you're at working from home. All these zero trust comes into play. And that's why I keep saying that security is everyone's responsibility.
You're
Absolutely.
bringing up memories from my military days, working at the Pentagon,
Oh, there you go.
doing
So when you
IT
go to the
work
Pentagon,
there.
right, you can't go into any door you want, right?
No, exactly. Yeah.
Exactly. Same thing with
Yeah,
data.
Mm,
or air gap systems that didn't
yeah.
have access to the internet. You
Yeah.
know, yeah, it's zero trust has been there. It's just looked different. And now that we're, SaaS forward as as a technology, and hopefully everybody is moving that way,
Mm,
uh, it's just becoming more and more important to adapt it.
mhm,
Yeah. And the other point is, think about this. If you walk down your street in your neighborhood and you had the most sensitive data you had in the world and you just used it in like a billboard form and you're just showing
mhm,
everybody, that's
mhm,
what happens if you don't encrypt your data. That's what happens
mhm,
if you don't VPN. That's if you don't know what's going on. That's what you don't have DLP. That's,
mhm,
all these different things to make sure you're secure. Think about it that way. When I used to explain what VPN was, it's like transversing the internet in a car that's like armored and you get to
mhm,
drive through the internet and people can't get in, right? Everyone else is just kind of running around, knocking into walls, like, oh, we're the internet. Everybody can do whatever they want, right?
Hey,
So that's
look at
how
my
I used to
clear
explain
password.
it.
yeah.
Here's my password. Here's my data that I don't want anybody to see. And it
Mm,
just comes down to zero trust, right? Think about, and I try to do that in a reasonable way so
mhm,
people can think about it like, oh, how does this relate to real world, right? Would you go outside with your bank account with a big old billboard and say, there's my bank account. Anybody want access to it? Here's my username and password. That's what you're doing if you're not using security, if you're not using zero trust security. That's what you're doing.
mhm,
Yep. And then there's logging, right? So there's
There you
having
go.
all the tools, and there's having them in a single pane of glass type of way. But then there's when something does happen, because
mhm,
even with the best laid plans, things
Right.
can still happen. But have you set yourself up from a logging perspective to go find out when, what, and for how long?
mhm,
And that's really important. I think that's something we're doing a really good job at JumpCloud. And I know that when we start talking about single sign-on and SAML, being able to see that ingress and egress of data and authentication there is really important. Then wrapping that all with MFA and being able to prove to auditors for compliance reason, yeah, we got
mhm.
all this. Here's our logs. You can see this person logged in here and there, and yeah.
Yeah, Zach, you're exactly right on the compliance side of things. Compliance, I like to loop in the insurance, cybersecurity insurance with that. A couple years ago, you were able to get cybersecurity insurance and just sign here, where you go. Now, the insurance companies, since they've been paying out on these ransomware things, they ask that you have these measures in place. And if you sign on the dotted line that you have these measures in place and it turns out you didn't, you're on the hook. They're not going to pay out.
Yeah,
No
there's a
insurance.
whole list of compensating controls, right? Like
Yeah.
boom, boom, boom,
Hmm.
boom, boom, right? Yeah.
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 We definitely see some frantic partners here at JumpCloud with a client and new security or cybersecurity insurance requirements kicking in at the end of the month or whatever it is, and there's a mad panic. So if you're not experiencing it today, chances are you will be soon. So get ahead of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's VPN, that's ingress into your Windows, Mac, and Linux, that's your single sign-on. You
Hmm.
know, there's a whole bunch of stuff that comes into play there, and zero trust being sort of at the core of that.
All right. Looks like we're approaching here, top of the
I don't know.
hour.
I'm having so much fun.
Yeah.
I know,
Well,
fantastic group that we've gotten together. But I do want to make sure that if there's any points that we haven't covered that are important today, or you guys have any closing thoughts, that we can share those with the group.
yeah, I think from an MSP standpoint, we need to be thinking about, the business, right, of an MSP and profitability and how that looks, and finding the right tools that enable you to provide the security that your clients need, but to do it in an efficient, effective way so that, the tools you pick actually add to your bottom line and your overall efficiency. That's a really critical part for an MSP to get right.
I want to just end with thanking every MSP that's on this and every MSP in the world, because you're the forefront. You're the line of defense. You're what stops everything from attacking our customers. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Now, also people-centric, right? People-centric, because everything that we do is result of people-centric. We want to make them more acceptable with security awareness. We want to DLP. We want to do a lot of different things. Here's what we say at Proofpoint, and I'll stop there. I promise I'll stop there. Malicious, compromise, and negligent, right? That's the different way data walks out. We like to say data doesn't walk out, sprout legs and walk out, right? Something happens to make that happen. So if we can stop that from happening, then we're going to be a lot better. Our security posture for not only us, but for even companies that you don't even think about that you're helping. So thank you again, and I'll pass it over to Dennis.
Yeah. If you're looking for a strategic partner with your MSSP or your MSP program, we're an MSSP. We partner with both Proofpoint and JumpCloud. Just reach out to me. Do they have our email addresses? Well,
they will now.
Yep, dkmoore@coefficient.us. And we're offering also a 30-day trial of JumpCloud for small MSPs, and if you want to go direct for your organization, we have a 30-day trial for JumpCloud.
Awesome.
One thing I would like to add is I'm a sales engineer on the MSP team, so I'm your technical resource in the sales cycle. So reach out to us, get a hold of me, and I'll be part of your team, and I'll make sure that we discover all the needs that you have and all the challenges that you're trying to address, not only just zero trust, but how it looks like to go through an adoption of a platform like this.
And what I'll say is, Zach is just awesome, right? You can talk, anything that you want to talk about with him is awesome. So yeah. if you need anything for
did we lose audio?
Then I think we lost you. We lost you.
Mm-hmm.
He'll be back. While we're waiting for Jason to come back, I will just add that we've gone over a lot of big picture strategies today, right? And ideas. As Zach mentioned, he is dedicated to our MSP team here at JumpCloud, and we would be happy to set up time to start talking about some real world applications and how you can use tools like JumpCloud and Proofpoint to start putting these things in practice. Jason, did we get you back?
I think so.
Yeah.
Okay, Zach, awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, I think his battery's going dead.
We're losing you, but it's a convenient time to lose you. So, all right. Well, a huge thank you to everyone who took time out of their morning today to attend. We really appreciate it. And then an extra thank you to my awesome guests here today, Dennis, Jason, Zach. Thank you guys so much. This was a lot of fun, and hopefully we can do it again here sometime soon. So happy Tuesday to everyone, 2/22/22, if you didn't know that. And hope you guys all have a fantastic day. Thank you.
All right. Take care.
Always
right,
great
bye, guys.
See you next time, Jason, Dennis. Bye, Katie.
Yeah.
Bye, guys.
Please subscribe and check out more content from us.